Good Sunday afternoon. Welcome to the 44 Club. Thank you for joining us. As always, I'm Brent. We're here at Andreas here in Charlotte, and we're going to be hanging out talking Porsche 944s. A lot of times I just wait for people to get into the chat, and then we'll start talking about stuff, and I'll show you some of the projects we're working on here. Usually we have things on hand, so that way people can see firsthand some of the stuff that they may be working on that we can help with. But yeah, we still have this white S2 here. It's almost finished up. We're just waiting for the cover to come back from powder coating, and we've got the clutch out right now. Well, we have the transmission and the torque tube slid back so we can remove the clutch. J Fusion says, happy Sunday. Well, happy Sunday to you. Hope you're having a great week. Got cold on us this week. It's been almost 70 all week and then turned cold. 61 says, hi from Sweden. Do you know if you can remove the cover on the knob on the seats bracket without breaking them? Yes, you can, but I don't advise trying. If you need to reupholster it, and I assume that's what you're doing, or if it's broken, then you don't have anything to worry about. They clip way down in there, and you pretty much have to have a pick to get them out. But if you are doing upholstery, just take the button out, the button unscrews, and then you can simply cut it to the size of the hole, and then you'll stretch the leather around the outside part, if that makes any sense. I don't have a back seat here, but yeah, you'll cut it to the size of the smaller hole, and then you'll stretch it around the outside of the larger diameter, and that'll make the plastic trim piece work. Jay Boo says, hello, everybody. Well, hello, Jay Boo. Hope everybody's having a great Sunday. We're going to get into it here in a second. I have been planning on making a very special video on bleeding the coolant system, and every time I turn the camera on, I don't have time. So I turn the camera on, and then I get sidetracked, and I just end up not being able to do it. But anyway, I'm going to try and have that done soon. But it's way easier than a lot of videos show. But maybe I'll describe it to you guys today, but won't be able to demonstrate. I'll just wait till that video comes out. But yeah, I got a few videos coming to you guys. I've been doing a lot of reels lately, so hopefully you guys have seen that. So there's not a lot of dead air. I'll take you through something that we've been kind of messing around with here. Here we go. So here's some balance shaft sprockets. So these should be very familiar to you guys. These didn't come plated from the factory, and since they're sealed, they don't typically rust. But to make them look nice, we always have them plated. And so what's interesting about these? Well, not much. They all have the same part numbers, but you may have noticed that when you were doing the balance shaft job that you have an O up here for the upper keyway, but there isn't a mark down here for the lower keyway. And that wasn't always the case. There used to be a U right here on the lower keyway. So upper is Obre in German, and lower is unter. So that's what that meant. But the lore is, and I don't know how true it is, but it could be possibly true, is that this could be misconstrued in English as upper, and then you have your balance shafts on wrong. So they just did away with the U. But, so before they did away with it, they had this. They just strike out the U, exit out. So this one's an even rare one. You might find these on 83s, 84s. Just something fun. The next time you're in there, check and see which one you got. So this isn't even all of them. Like I said, all of these are the same part number, but so they started out like that, 82, 83. And then around 83, 84, they went to that. And then 84 on, they were like this without that mark. But sometime around 86, 87, they went to this one, and you can see that the O has a little bit of a different font to it. So compare it to the early ones. So next time you're in there, just check and see which ones you got. But these right here are super rare. I think I have another one of these. These are about the only two that I have left with the U's on there, and I'm keeping those. But the rest of these are just regular old balance shaft sprockets by the dozen, dime a dozen. But that one there, I'm definitely keeping. Might get it replated. Sometimes the plating doesn't always turn out well. You'll get one or two things in the batch that don't turn out exactly right. But so we make them look. Casey says, Casey is back from Cali. Well, congratulations. Hope you had a good trip. When I was in Huntington Beach, I got a tour of the Porsche parts place called Emmeline, which was featured on the show Wheeler Dealer. Awesome. I had no idea they were out there, but that makes sense. Huntington Beach. I'll have to check that out next time I'm out there. I hope you're having a great afternoon. Well, morning to you. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed that little sidetrack of the balance shaft sprockets. You never know what you're going to end up with. Casey says lots of used Porsche parts for 944s. Awesome. Yeah, I've seen their website. I've come across it before. It's one of those things where, you know, there's Sierra Madre, Emmeline. I think I'm saying that right. And what's the other one? Rose Passion. I see all these sites, but I don't know which one I can trust. So I have ordered from, I just ordered from Sierra Madre something. So I guess they're legit. But we'll see. I haven't got it yet. But that's the first time I've ever had to order anything from a site like that. But they were the only ones that had it. It was a the little door light flasher for an S2. I think I got it laying around here somewhere. I have the old one anyway. There it is. So ordered this. So if you have an S2 and it has the little LED in the lock that flashes, then it just mounts right here. And as you can see, the lock broke off of it. So I have to replace it. You have to replace the whole thing. It just degrades over time. J-Bo says the weather has been nice today and went out for a drive. Unfortunately, I have nobody willing to sit in the back and work out where all the squeaks are coming from. Uh, well, that's no good. I know when I bought my 88 924S, I kept hearing a squeak in the back, and it was just a bad hatch strut. Replaced it, and it was fine. Casey says, but get all your shots before walking around their shop. Oh God, is it that bad? You need a tetanus shot before going inside? Wow. Well, if you're in the Andreas Facebook group, send us some pictures of that. We'd like to see it. I'd really like to see all the pictures. That's awesome. We're always trying to figure out who we can deal with. A lot of the places that we go to, they have a lot of parts, but they don't carry everything. But it's 911 mostly. So they strip down old cars there and part them out, or I know that they also carry new parts on their site, but like usually more boutique stuff, kind of like Sierra Madre does, like with the lights and stuff. Um, I noticed that I guess the smaller 944 boutique stores, I would say, they don't have they don't have everything, I guess, because it's not worth it for them to carry every single thing for 944. Okay, so he says yes, they part out. Well, that's awesome to know. Well, good. I wonder what they've got in there because the 944S heads are getting extremely rare. We're getting to the point where we have to repair the ones that we have, and it's getting harder to do. Casey says they have tractor trailers with door panels. Oh, okay. I definitely need to check that out. Yeah, I've been to their site before and I've seen some of their stuff. I had no idea that they were into it like that or what exactly was going on. But that sounds like a lot of fun. I know most of the time I use a 944 barn, but parts go so quick. These cars are being restored very quickly. There's a lot of people getting into what we're doing now, and you didn't see that 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I thought, how could I even make this a business? Because, you know, first of all, there's not enough 944s. And second of all, like, there's definitely not enough 944s in my area. And then third of all, it was like, how many people with 944s want to actually take it to a shop? They want to do most of the work themselves. So I'm like, how can this be sustainable? But yeah, I think that over time that it's become amazing. I mean, to have constantly a wait list of 30 cars and then 15 cars here. It's not exactly. I didn't think it'd ever get there, but yeah, we can't even keep up with the demand. So I mean, that opens a window to, or it opens a door for other people to come in and do some of the stuff that we're doing, especially the smaller stuff. But we're getting tied up with like a lot of huge jobs. So yeah, I sometimes see the guys parting out cars, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I should have done that. It's a lot easier to break down a car and sell the parts. But enough looking at me. Here's this S2. So I think last week we hadn't got the belts on yet. We had the intake back on and we were replacing that hose. We were able to get that hose in there no problem without removing the intake. all new hoses on here. Got the coolant filled now. I'd fill it up with the nose in the air. I usually fill it to here, but as soon as like we lift it up, you can see the nose is kind of down now. So while we're servicing the clutch, so it's come up a little bit. As soon as it goes level, it'll go back down again. But I really wish that I took a video of how we bled this, because this was so easy and everything went perfect on it. That would have been the time to make that video on bleeding the coolant system, but missed my opportunity. And then I started filming on another car and I just couldn't get it done. But yeah, we got all new belts. We had to replace this balance shaft sprocket up here. Someone had broken it. I wished I'd kept it. I think we threw it away before we even got a chance to take a picture of it, but someone had broken it all to pieces. And so we replaced that one, replaced all the gaskets, replaced all the hoses and vacuum lines, sensor, and we did the timing chain and pads. And someone was asking last week if I would show how to do the timing on this. And I think what I'll do is that eventually I will make a video on this, but it's kind of a trade secret right now. The instructions in the manuals is not clear, and I don't mean to keep things secret, but like I said, in this day of like this day and age, we got too many people that just come out and try and take advantage of the knowledge we share. So J Fusion says, is there any way to bleach the coolant tank so they're less yellow? Unfortunately not. There is something that we use on these here. You can do it to the brake reservoirs, but they're so cheap, it's not even worth the effort. Look up Retro Bright. It's a fake name for a homemade concoction that people used to use to remove the yellow from PC computers or Macs back in the day. So, you know, they started adding chemicals to the plastics back in the 80s, so they were less prone to fire. I believe a lot of that was bromine, which is kind of brownish, but and so over time this just ages from UV or just oxygen, whatever. And you can take these and you can use that Retro Bright stuff, which is basically just hair peroxide for hair. And I did this on a few cars back when the early ones, now these were always available for the late cars, but the early cars, you couldn't find them anywhere. And this skirt keeps wanting to fall off the side of the car here. Oh, man. I'm over here trying to keep the skirt from falling off the car, and it's not one. Okay, anyway, I just had to lay it up there. But yeah, you could get, it's hydrogen peroxide. It's like, I think up to 50%, very high concentration. And it's a gel, and you sit it outside in UV light and it bleaches this out. I tried it on one of these. It worked, but honestly, you used to be able to buy this version, the naturally aspirated car version of these tanks, for around 130 bucks. This was pre-COVID. So that was not even, it wasn't even worth bothering with. Now they're very expensive, but yeah, the later or the earlier ones that I was bleaching, the brake boosters there or the reservoirs, they're back in stock. So not worth doing. These here can be $700 for the turbo version or more. So I can see if you have a turbo, but these are still like $300. It's almost not worth doing. And honestly, I swapped mine out in my personal car around 2015, and it's already looking like that. So it's like every 10 years you're going to spend like 300 bucks to get a new one. I would only do it if you can't see the coolant level at all at this point. You know, it's one of those things. Rusty Ratchet Garage says on the early 944s, there's supposed to be a little play on the rear wheel bearings. Just replace mine and have a little play. Nope, there shouldn't be any play at all. Make sure that you have all the spacers and everything lined up the correct way. The early wheel bearings are very convoluted to install, but there should be no play at the rear at all, especially if you're just moving it by hand. But they torque down a lot, what, 250, and then I think the later ones are like 400. So yeah, I would just make sure that the spacer's in there correctly. If I remember right, you have a seal, then you have a spacer, you have the bearing, you have the little spacer that goes between the two bearings, the bearing, then another spacer and a shim and all this stuff. It's I think there's 5 parts in there just on one side. Looking at the diagram doesn't really help with the confusion either. I made a video years ago, and I think I put it over on my Patreon of how to do it, but I never did make it public. It was kind of one of those we filmed it in an afternoon. But since then, I've probably done 10 of them and just never get around to doing it. Um, Mark says the turbo tanks are ridiculous. Yes, they're very ridiculous. They didn't used to be that way. You used to be able to buy, in 2019, you used to be able to buy a turbo tank for like $350, and then the NA ones for like $130. But yeah, that's gone now. And that started around 2020 or something. Just astronomical prices. I don't know if the places that made them shut down and never reopened or what was going on with that. But I think they're starting to come back into production, and so prices are coming down a little bit, but it's still ridiculous. Quinlan says, I have some steering wheel shake off and on around 60 mile an hour. New steering rack, newly balanced wheels, rebuilt control arms. Any ideas? Um, kind of wheels do you have on the car? So I know if you have an early offset car, that's 82 if you're in Europe to up to 86. If you put anything like 17s and 18s on the car, anything bigger than 17, you'll get a vibration that's just almost impossible to get rid of because the spacers themselves, you'll have to have those balanced, and you'll have to have the wheels balanced with the spacers. And they are 15s. Okay. So if they're the stock 15s, I would I wouldn't take the wheels to a just like a regular tire shop. I would find some place that repairs wheels and have them check it out. Now, it's also possible that you could have something out of balance as far as there's still something wrong somewhere inside the suspension. But if you take it to a wheel repair place, we had to do that on one of the cars that we had here. And they found that the tire was out of round. And so what they'd done is they balanced the wheel, of course, but they added like a ton of weights to try and correct for the bent wheel. Well, this place went in and they actually rebent the wheel back into shape and did it correctly. And then now there's no weights on the wheel whatsoever. So that might be something worth looking into, especially if you've got all new stuff on there. But sometimes um, I would look there first. Yeah. Especially if it's around 60. If it's at lower speed, sometimes it might, be something else. So Jerry Boo says, I had to replace my U joint. I'm guessing UJ is U joint. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, if it's coming from the rear, especially, then yeah, it could just be it'd be the CV axles. Yeah, I'd see first. If it's coming, if it's shaking the wheel, yeah, it's, yeah, steering wheel shake on and off. Hmm. Yeah, I'd check. I would definitely check the wheels out. That would be my first thing. That's usually what we do here. But there's all sorts of things in the suspension that can cause something like that, but not typically when you get up to like specific speeds though. That's going to be typically in the wheel. So this is a 2.7 liter we still got here. We've got all the new hoses on this now. We got the balance shaft. Well, these were done in 2023, still look good. We got the new wiring on here. I just turned the camera away so that way I can take sips of drink while I'm talking here. I don't figure you guys want to look at me anyway, but is there anything in particular you guys are working on that you'd like to see? We have a bunch of cars here that we could show, but so is there a main way to tell differences between a 2.7 from above the dipstick? Well, actually, all the later cars had that same dipstick. Um, so in 88, I was going to show you something, but that's not exclusive to 89s either. So no, not really. So in 88, they put this valve on there. So this pretty much looks exactly like a 88 2.5 liter. You might be able to look close and see that the intake is a little bit larger, but oh, I actually found a 2.7 liter gasket. Now, I don't know what it did with it, but aha, here we go. Aha. So, all right. So, yeah, not really a good way to tell a difference between an 88 and an 89 2.7 liter, but this is the intake gasket for a 2.7 liter. And if you put it on a 2.5 liter head here, you can see just how much bigger that intake is. So visually, you can't really tell, but there you go. I guess you could look at this portion too. Let me remove that. This is different on the 2.7 liter head, but you'd have to like, there you go. This would be the way to do it. But as you can see, it's very hard to see down in there. Oh, oh yeah. Just from walking around the car, you never see it. This is a head gasket for 2.7 liter. Don't think I've got a head gasket handy for 2.5, but you'll get the idea. So this is 2.7 liter head gasket. Notice that this right here is completely different than the 2.5. There's only one bolt hole and it's half the size here. And then of course, that is how much larger the intake port is. So yeah, no good way to tell right off. It looks exactly like my 88, but little details that you probably couldn't see without really digging into it. Okay, actually, let me do this. So this is the intake gasket for the 2.5 liter. Quite a bit of difference there. I'll turn them the same way. How about that? Yeah. A lot more airflow going in the 2.7 liter head. Of course, the valves are much larger too. You got a 104 millimeter bore, so it allows you a lot more clearance for the valves. Someone in my Facebook group this morning, I don't know if he's here, but he was asking about this water neck here. And as you can see, there is a recess in there, and he's wondering if an O-ring went in there. No, no O-ring goes in there, just this gasket here. And always remember, yeah, I'm looking through the camera, so I'll just do that in the hole because I'm not actually looking at what I'm doing. I'm looking through the camera at what I'm doing. So, but remember, your gaskets always go letters out, except this one here. Don't know why they designed it like that, but I have seen a few times where I've gotten cars in with the injectors blocked off on number one. Number one is the only one that goes upside down, but all the rest of the gaskets on the car goes letters out. And then this is just going to bolt on just like this. Oh, and by the way, this is the barn find car that came in a few weeks ago. And you might remember last week, this thing was a utter mess. And now it looks beautiful. So I spoke with the owner, and we were talking about just going ahead and doing the head gasket because it had been sitting so long. Sometimes the piston rings freeze when they sit for a long time. We don't know what the cylinders are actually going to look like inside. They could be scored, something could be going on. And worse than that, the head gaskets just rot over the years, especially if they've been sitting and get the car running and do all this work just to get it running and to find out that the head gasket has coolant pouring out of it or something. So we went ahead and did the head gasket on this car. Cylinders look great. There's compression. Rings are sealing great. And we went ahead and rebuilt the head. And then, of course, we just cleaned everything up while we were doing it. So this was that really ugly, dirty barn find. And as you can see, it's starting to look like new again. Jay Boo says, my lower balance shaft front seal is leaking, so that is coming up. Oh, yeah, that's always fun. Just remember that whenever you do these, to also replace this collar, and then there's a clear seal in behind that. And I probably have a few of these laying around here. Let me find. I'll find one that's already disassembled. I do have one just laying here, but it is already assembled. Oh, here's an interesting thing. So these are some of the parts that we clean here. We have in stock. This would be the heat shield that goes over the engine mount. Looks brand new. Oh, and here's an interesting thing here. So you guys probably recognize that being on the front of the engine, but did you know the very early cars had that on it? And this here is what the brakes look like brand new from the factory. Someone just asked, do we do the zinc plating in-house? No, we have someone that we work closely with that does all this for us. Vapor honing is now in-house. Well, currently. We're going to try and make it permanently in-house. So that's what we're working on. I have another shop, and we're going to convert that into the vapor honing place. So we're already really busy with all the stuff that we have to vapor hone here, but we're going to open that up so that way if you guys need anything vapor hone, because there's a lot of places not wanting to do it anymore. And I looked all over Charlotte and the greater area, and nobody, they do theirs in house. They'll buy these, really expensive machines, but they just do it to for their own classic cars. There's a 911 specialist here in Charlotte, and he vapor hones, and he'll do it. It's very expensive, more expensive than probably what we charge, or but yeah, it just wasn't worth it to us. It was cheaper for us to just go ahead and think about investing and doing it ourselves. So that's kind of what we're looking at. But yeah, getting back to the balance shaft cap. Um, try and find one that's already out. I know I've got one over here somewhere. Ah, yes, of course. These are the ones that we clean. This is what they look like after we clean them, but before they're vapor honed. So something like this would go on like a barn find car. So when it's we'll clean their parts, or if we can't, if it still looks pretty rough, then this is kind of stuff that's going to go on the barn find car. But if someone's brakes, you know, let's say we find the balance shaft or something nose end that's broken, then we'll replace it with this. This is going to be what we just replace parts with. But if it gets to the stage where they're vapor honed, then of course those are going to go on the higher end engines and stuff. But yeah, this was all vapor honed. You can see the cross member there, the bell housing. It's quite a bit of difference between that and that. I mean, this looks perfectly fine, but this looks even better. So yeah, we have to clean them because the machine will just clog up with any dirt and grease. So we have to make sure that they're perfectly clean before we ever get to that stage. So that's a lot of time that goes into this stuff. So I can see that if you bring dirty parts to these guys and they have to clean them and stuff, I mean, I could see $200 an hour. It's very time consuming. And then this is I'll show you, like, this is just a fraction of the zinc plated stuff that we have. So we have racks and racks and racks of brand new bolts, essentially. So that there is for the diagnostic port. But yeah, those bolts. So anytime we're working on a car and it's not getting, we'll take the bolts off the car when we're doing repair. We'll clean those up and we typically put them back on. But if we're doing a higher end engine repair or rebuild, then we throw all that stuff in this bucket here. I don't know what this bag's doing in here, but oh well. Yeah, we throw a bag in there too. Why not? And they soak, and then once it removes all the rust from it, then we can move on to cleaning everything up further. Like usually that removes all the grease and the rust from everything. So are those bolts reused? In some cases, yes. So, excuse me, but yeah, like this bolt here, a lot of these bolts are reused. If they're too rusty, we just chuck them. And but a lot of the bolts that we have are perfectly reusable. I mean, a lot of times people are just going to wash them off and put them back in anyway. So we just go the extra step and have them resine plated. But yeah, I mean, why not reuse these bolts? And the clamps, a lot of these, like that one there, we don't use these here. That probably, you can see it wasn't plated, but these clamps, these are original OEM clamps. If they're still in good shape, if they're bent in any way, we throw them away. But yeah, we spread them out, clean them up, and then before we throw them in here, we make sure that they are ready to go back on. But yeah, a lot of those are OEM clamps that have just been redone. But any bend in them, it's over with them. So yeah, that's our process. We take them off the car, we throw them in a bucket, and that bucket has some very strong degreaser in there, and it will eat off all the grease and the rust. And then it requires us having to change that out a lot because the whole bottom of the bucket would just be covered in oil and grease and whatever. And then once that's done, we have to do a chemical strip that removes all the original zinc plating that was on there. And once that's done, then it's able to go to plating. But we have to dip it back into another chemical to make sure that it's not going to flash rust. So once we strip the galvanizing or the zinc off of it, it's going to rust really quick, no matter the temperature or the humidity outside. So we have to get that dunked back into another chemical to prevent rust, and then we send it over there to them. So it's a multi-step process, and a lot of that's done in house, which takes a very long time. On my 944S, I have a steer sensor on my steering pump. I'm looking for the rubber boot that protects it. Impossible to find. So there was actually a service bulletin put out, and you're probably not going to find it because of this, to remove that because there was an issue with that shorting out. Go back and look at the factory service manual because you'll need to remove that. I think the protocol is to just unplug it and put it to the side. It was taken out. Also, I think it was taking out the fuse box and everything. Something inside that sensor could malfunction, and it was just causing stuff. So that may be why you can't find many parts for it. It was only on a couple of years. I think by the time they did the S2, I think the service bulletin was out and they had done away with that. It was just a big problem that they had. If yours still works, that's great. And I agree with keeping stuff original, but when it comes to the service bulletin, the last thing we want to do is have a car leave here that has some crazy malfunction that takes out the electrical system. So might be something to look into there. Jay Boo says I need to invest in a 3. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Yeah, it was part of a bulletin. Yeah. Oh, okay. So he said I had the Porsche garage retrofit wiring to have it fused. Okay, cool. That's awesome. Well, I think they did away with it completely, and that's probably why you're not going to be able to find the plug for it because they just wanted you to just do away with it altogether. And they figured, not many models had it, and no one should have it anymore. So why make a part for it? Might have been in not enough demand or something. But we run into that too. There's a few things that just can't find. But yeah, I'm glad you saw the bulletin and it's fused. Yeah. I would also recommend to everybody watching right now, if you don't know, fuse your coil. The factory did not fuse the coil. And now this one's a rare one. This one is much more rare than the power steering sensor, but you never know when it's going to happen. You could end up with like corrosion on your spark plugs, and your wires could look perfect, but the tops of and you shouldn't get moisture in there, but over the years, anything can happen, especially when it comes to the ignition. Uh, doesn't matter if you put that dielectric grease down in there or not. And that's something we'll talk about at the time. I get a lot of cars in here with dielectric grease on the spark plug electrode. Yeah, don't put it there. You want it around the rubber. If there's no rubber, then don't use dielectric grease. And that's just to keep the rubber from sealing into place, or seizing into place. And you should put that stuff around your sensors too, your speed and reference sensors, around the rubber O-ring. But yeah, we see that a lot. And if I've seen it a couple of times where spark plug wires look beautiful, you pull them off and they're green, and they're just old. And what happens is this creates a lot of amps, a lot of resistance, and it ends up burning the whole freaking fuse box out. So you want it on the black wire, put a fuse in there. It don't have to be, it could be a 7.5 fuse. It doesn't matter. Just that's just something that I did that to my own car after I saw that happen. I was like, we're not doing that again. So yeah, something interesting that they should have done was definitely fuse that, what you're talking about, and fuse that. I've had issues with coolant leak on the front and rear water necks. Have you had something like this? So you're talking about this one here and this one here. So, okay, this is my tip of the day here. This calls for, both of these call for 13 foot-pounds. Don't do 13 foot-pounds. Yep. So what we do here is, even though I think these are 18 on here, we do 15 and these go 8. So if you're torquing these down here, go to 8 foot-pounds. They're not going to loosen up, nothing. Now, if you're putting new gaskets in there, my guess is that when you're putting 13 foot-pounds on here, you're over tightening it, and that will split the gasket here. So it'll tighten it too much, and it will just split it right out. And then you got to go back in and put another gasket. Torque these to 8, leave it at that. 150,000 miles later, no bolts fall out. You're perfectly fine. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to come out 8 foot-pounds. But these gaskets just aren't made the same as the factory ones. That I don't even know the factory toward these to 13. Let's get real. But that's what they call for. But we don't do that here. Put new gaskets in, do that. Also check that your mating surfaces are flat and flush. You know, make sure. You might want to check that with a straight edge or something, and just make sure. But a little warping's fine. This is a thick gasket, but you don't want too much. But yeah, I'm gonna guess that like what your problem is probably majorly caused or mainly caused by too tight, surprisingly. Like I mentioned when we were talking about the cam housing gaskets right here on one of the shows. This right here, 15 foot-pounds. You go 16 foot-pounds, it breaks, it'll split it wide open, and you got oil coming down all over the place. So same thing with this. If you go over 8 foot-pounds on these, you just end up with coolant all over the place. Yeah, it's wild, but yeah, these gaskets like to split. These love to split too. And yeah, any more than 15.1 foot-pounds, this thing is split, and you got oil all over the place. So I hope that helps. But that's my best guess. Like I say, you can see here, we do a lot of this, and we know pretty much. We don't usually have to go back and do stuff like this. Sometimes it happens. Um, I think our thing lately is remembering to tighten up the bolts on the back of the thing. We'll go to pressurize the system, and then we're like, "That's weird." Oh, yeah, the very back one, yeah. It's the hardest one to get to, yeah. So, well, we do a pressure test before any of the cars leave. So, well, actually, before we ever even start them up, we do that so we can find any leaks. So, we're pretty good about not breaking any gaskets anymore and having any leaks. But every now and then, we just, you know, that's what the pressure tester's for, to tell us what we missed. Because I'm really bad about this. I'll work on one car and do a job on it, and I'll go over to the other car, the other red one that's not right next to it, and think that I've already done that. Then I've got to go, oh, why is that not? Oh, because that was the other one. So you got to kind of sometimes things keep track of everything. Sometimes double check. Top Trash Man says, wondering what would cause the power steering pump tensioner screw to shear off. I've had 3 break on mine now. Oof. Uh, when you have the belt off, check to see if the power steering pump is easy to turn or it's stiff. And you also want to make sure that it's not being pulled back and forth. So the power steering pump needs to be set exactly, well, it needs to be set with the nut at the front. So when you pull it through, I got a power steering pump here somewhere. I could just show you. Don't worry about it. He's going to get up and look, but no, I don't have to do that. I think this one here, yeah, we might be able to show you on that, or this one here, but you want that front nut that comes through the power steering pump, you want that to be torqued completely down, and that's going to line everything up. And when you're turning your pump, you also want to try and slide it in and out and make sure it's not sliding in and out. Seen that before. But once it's bolted, that's going to align it with the pulley. And then you can put your rear bolt in. If you put your rear bolt in first, make sure you have the spacers in there as well. So there's 2 spacers that the bolts go through. So you'll put your pump up in there, and then you're going to put your spacer in there, tighten it all the way to the front. Then you put your rear spacer in, and you'll tighten that up. But you don't want that rear bolt. You can see how it slides when you're in there. You don't want that rear bolt pulling it back out of alignment. And once you're in alignment, you should be fine, unless there's something jamming it up. But alignment is key there. Also check, I don't know if this is making a difference, but I mean, there might be something weird where your car is using a bracket that's supposed to go to the 3 rib or something like that, and it's a little bit shorter and it's making the alignment a little bit off. It's no telling. So earlier cars had a 4 rib pulley here. Actually, I have some. So they had a 4 rib pulley there. Later cars had a 5 rib. They have a 5 rib pulley there, and later they went to 6. So if that is just a hair off, then it will cause power steering pulley to be a little bit off on that side, and vice versa. So let's see here. I've got a 4 rib pulley, 5 rib pulley here. So these are all just things that you might want to look at when you're trying to align stuff. So this is a 5 rib. You can see, I'll tell you a story about that here in a minute. And this is the 6 rib. So as you can imagine, when you go to put this on there, you're going to have just that little bit of difference between the way this pulley's going to sit in there. I don't know that would cause that, but you never know, because the pulley should sit on that crank anyway, but this might recess it just enough, because I don't think there's a gap there. I think the gap stays the same for the pulley. And, you know, it's just a thought to just make sure that everything is lining up. But yeah, this was a 5 rib pulley that ended up on a 6 rib car, and we had to correct our mistake. One of the new guys here didn't notice that, and so what are the options? What options are there to improve braking on a car with a 15-inch wheels? Well, I mean, there's a few options that you can do. There's some stuff that we're doing here, but honestly, if your braking's poor, then you might want to look into why it's poor. Um, I've had turbocharged cars with NA brakes turbocharged cars that we turbocharged and the brakes were perfectly fine on. But yeah, turbo brakes are superior. I will say that. I've had a turbo brake. They are the strongest, and they will absolutely. They're impressive, but yeah, I would say if you're not willing to go like Willwoods or something, but Willwoods, there's Volvo brakes. There's a certain Volvo brake. I can't tell you what's off of. I don't know Volvos that well, but I've heard and know guys that have done it. They'll put 4-piston Volvo brakes on. I think they bolt up. Then Willwood makes stuff that's 4-piston, and honestly, I'd be plenty enough. A 4-piston brake on a tiny little 11-inch rotor for 15 inches should be big enough. There you go. I would try that. I would try and rebuild your brakes first and see if there's something going on. Maybe there's master cylinder issue too. But yeah, if you're looking to like have some really serious brakes, then yeah, Volvo brakes. I think they're cheap too. But there's forums. If you just Google it, Volvo brakes on a 944, I'm sure a forum will pop up and they'll tell you what exact model they use on it. Here we just do Willwoods. Oh, going back up, Quinlan says, do you vacuum the coolant? How do you make sure there's no air bubbles in it? So we do not use vacuum. We let gravity do it itself. So all you're trying to do whenever you're bleeding a coolant system is you got to think when these cars left the factory, do you think that they're sitting there sucking and blowing and raising the car temperature up and opening it, do all this stuff to try and bleed it out? And they didn't use vacuum systems either. Basically, all you want to do is make this the highest point in your cooling system, and the factory didn't take this out and then put it back in. Now there's ways to do this, and I want to save it to the video because it's very interesting. But yeah, this down here should be low point. This is the low point of the cooling system. This is just to get the air out. This needs to be your high point. But once you make that your high point, you pour your coolant in there, and the air it'll start coming out. As you're pouring it in, it's going to come out over here. And then with the early car, you can just open the heater valve, but here you can do it manually. So you just reach back there and open that heater control valve. And then as you're doing it, and you're going to hear all the air come out, everything to come out there. And then as it comes out, then you're going to have the rest of the air that's in this part come out up here. And I'm going to show you. It's a trick, and it's not even magic. It's all you got to do. You just got to have one simple thing. It's what the factory used to do this. And they just do hundreds a day, just fill the coolant up, and that was the end of it. Do you drill it? No, do not drill the thermostat. No, absolutely not. Do not drill the thermostat. All the air will come out the air bleeder screw. And it'll make sense when I release the video on this. I actually started filming it, and then I got sidetracked with this stuff. But yeah, don't drill your thermostat because think about it. Like the water's going to, or the coolant's going to want to come down this way, and it's going to be stopped at the thermostat. But all it's going to do is it's now going to like fill up the radiator, and then it's going to come in, and then you're going to have a higher point than this here, and then this is going to start filling the block up, but it's going to go down and it'll fill it from this side. You don't have to worry about any of that at all. It'll fill it up, and then once air comes out here, guess what? That means that the block was filled from this side, mainly from that side, and then you're going to know you don't have any air in there. But you're still going to have air in your system. That's why this needs to be the highest point. And we'll get into all that, and I'll explain it in further detail, do some illustrations and stuff. But I mean, some of you guys out there probably already figured out what I'm talking about, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah. So how do you properly reseal the rear balance shaft? I've seen people have issues. So, all right, let's see. So this is your rear balance shaft plug, and I have an engine here. So anyway, two ways to do it. I don't like RTV, but you'll notice that when you stick this seal in there, here's a used seal. This one's out of a car rebuilt. You can see that that seal does not touch that outer edge. And even when, see if I can get it in better lighting here. Turn you guys around. So let's see. So you can see there's a gap there. So even when it's pressed down, it doesn't fill that in. And what happens over time is that it just shrinks. The rubber shrinks and then it just flops around in there. So I have seen people take two of the green O-rings and stick them on each side of that. And that keeps the shrinkage from happening, and it also holds this in place in the right place. They call it a crabby cake, I think. But I used that for a while. That didn't really impress me. So what we do now is we put a thicker O-ring in here, and I'll even add just a little bit of RTV to it just to lock it in place so it'll never flop around. I'm not a huge fan of RTV, but this is like the only spot I'd ever recommend using it. This was just, it's not a great design. But you know what? 10 years later, no leaks. And if you've got to reseal yours, we used to, I'll be honest with you, we used to pull the balance shaft covers off and we would go in there and do this right with a seal and not use RTV. And we were back in there in a few weeks or a few months. And so now, if it's just like a lower balance shaft, you've seen us do a video where we remove the whole engine just to do the lower balance shaft seal on one car. Well, those days are pretty much gone. If it's a car that's not getting a full rebuild or something, we'll just clean this area off in the back and we'll just squeeze some RTV in there and boom, it works. So if you don't have to do it, and I mean, it's not the right way, and I don't like doing it that way, but sometimes you just have to pick your battles with things. And, cars coming in for, a couple of $100 in service and they got a leaky balance shaft and you can get RTV in there, why they want to spend like $1,500 to have the balance shaft resealed. It doesn't make any sense. So, but yeah, if you're at home and you want to do it, that'll work just fine. You never have to touch it or worry about it again. It should have just been RTV from the factory, but I get where they were going with that. I don't like the stuff, but there you go. Sometimes you just have to pick your battles. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Yep. So on like barn find cars and stuff that we're just cleaning up, we're going to reuse the sprockets. We're not going to go in and replace them unless they're broken. He's getting ready to put these on here. He's got the new sleeve in with the O-ring and all. Oh, so this one was stuck down there and didn't want to cooperate, but he's getting ready to put it on there. Okay. Now what you want to do is you can see here that this balance shaft's not going all the way on there. And before you push it on all the way, you want to kind of pull it back off and see what that thing's doing. See how it's kicked up in the rear? What happened is that won't seat properly. You don't want to make the sprocket do it, because the sprocket actually just kick it out of there. So if you see that, you try and put it on there and it don't go all the way, stop, pull it off, make sure, because what can happen is that you'll think you got it and then you don't. So yeah, just take a little something and just tap that in there. My 84 has two different aero separator size seals. I thought the 84 was supposed to have the same size. No, at 84 they changed it, so it's 83 that has the same size. I'm just gonna tap that in there. See how easy that is. Just gently tap it in. Yeah, it should be 82, 83 had the same size, so 84 is correct, and that carried on all the way to the end. I guess they figured the oil went in too slow. if you ever had an 83 come in and you try and fill the oil up, it takes all day because that little tiny hole. Even the later cars, you have to take all day you'll go to pump, put the oil in, it just takes all day for it to go down. But yeah, actually had an 83 block here and might have that thing here. So every time you guys ask something, I'm like, I think I got one of those here. I think I actually have an 83 air oil separator here somewhere. But yeah, I think by 84 they were all gone. But it could be like anything. Porsche would sometimes just go until they were out of stock of stuff. But I think, well, so they probably using the blocks and that until they just stopped. It might have been like mid 84. But something interesting is that on some of the early, this is only on the early 924Ss, they had everything that the 940, there was basically an early 944 turbo chassis. And the fuel line cutout things are there for it. It even has the little brace for the turbo clutch line, all sorts of stuff. It's kind of interesting. But then they did away with all that. And then the later 924Ss were just all basically early 944s again. So John says, I saw in one of your videos that you sent a car out for repainting. What's the ballpark figure for getting a 944 repainted? Back then, some of those so we do different levels, and so it's going to depend. I mean, honestly, it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, you can get a 944 painted at Maaco for like $600, but you're still going to have every scratch and every dent in the paint. And our paint jobs used to be anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000, and like now we're sitting in the ballpark of, you're probably looking at $10,000 to get a quality paint job nowadays. So maybe over 10 grand, yeah. Because by the time we strip it, sand it, fix all the scratches, and take everything off the car and then have it painted, it depends on what level you want painted. Some people were just like, I don't need expensive paint. And other people are like, I need really nice paint. So it's up to you. It depends on quality of the paint. So I would be looking in like the $10,000 range. Some people mix up the rear balance shaft seal with the Aero-S seal. Yep. It's easy to do. They're the same part number on some cars. But later, after 87, they were a completely different seal. So if you have an 87, it's a completely different seal. But I think that they're not mixing it up. I think it really is it is the same part number for the earlier cars. The bigger one anyway, the bigger lower one is the same for the earlier But in 87, they switched to a different one. So you can see this is a different one here. See how that doesn't have anything on the back? This one here is bigger, and then it has a little notch on the back. They look identical, but this one might be smaller, and this one's bigger. So yeah. So speaking of someone that probably owns an 87 and later, yeah, you'd probably go, well, these aren't even the same seals, but they used to be. They used to be. Um, what's your opinion on using cheap brands like Euro for the collars? Go for it. I have no problem with most Euro parts. Just don't buy their electrical stuff. Don't buy a Euro relay and try and drive cross country. You're not gonna have a good time. But hoses, their collars, all that stuff, it's perfectly fine. Never had a problem with any of that stuff. The water pumps, never had a problem with any of that stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not afraid to tell anybody. Just we use whatever we can get our hands on. Sometimes we're ordering from stuff. It's the only thing we can get, and we try and use the premium brands on the higher end builds. But yeah, on the lower, we never have any problem. Like garage find builds and stuff like that. We just, we just got to replace it. Never have any problem with it. Just don't be afraid of it. It's perfectly fine. Just don't, yeah, don't buy their electronic. Don't buy their door switches and stuff like that. That is the worst stuff. Their switches are worse than their DMEs. But that's not me just saying. I'm just from experience. Like that's just, you know, don't come after me. I'm just saying. This is just my experience with it. Every time I get some of those, but yeah, I like. Yeah. Anyway, Raven says hi. Well, hope you guys enjoyed our club meeting this week, and hopefully you guys will join me next week, and we'll be getting into all new stuff. And hope to see you then. So have a great week, and we'll see you next Sunday.